Hi, I'm Matt and welcome to my latest tech news video. I'll be covering recent tech news in this video. These news videos will generally cover gaming related tech, but also tech and hardware in general. I'm grateful for any feedback as usual, so if you feel the need to do so, please leave a comment below. You can also like and subscribe if you enjoy my videos. I'll now get into some tech news. The first couple news topics for today's video will be AMD GPU news. AMD recently announced its two new graphics SKUs at Gamescom 2023 in Germany. The new GPUs are the Radeon RX 7800 XT and Radeon RX 7700 XT. They've both now released. They released on the 6th of September. I think both are fairly priced, though I would have liked the 7800 XT to perform a bit higher and the 7700 XT to be a bit lower in price. But yeah, they are not bad cards. They seem rather decent actually, especially considering the current state of GPU pricing. But yeah, I think the 7700 XT should have definitely probably costed less. I think that the 7800 XT is the clear better buy due to it being only around 10% more expensive while being around 20 to 30% faster than the 7700 XT. So now to get into both GPUs a bit more. Starting with the 7800 XT, the card seems to be doing quite well. I will cover a few basics first, then get into reviews, etc. I will include some screenshots of the card's tech power-up page in case you want to take a look. 7800 XT has an MSRP of $500, is based on RDNA 3, it has 3840 cores with a boost clock of 2340 MHz, 16 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM, a 256-bit bus, and a total board power TBP of 263 watts. Now onto the performance metrics. I will include Hardware Unboxed and Gamers Nexus's videos and reviews for the 7800 XT in the description. These were the main reviews that I watched, and I will include some written reviews as well. The 7800 XT performs very similarly to the 6800 XT RTX 3080 10GB and the RTX 4070 at 1080p and 1440p, although the 4070 does lag a little behind the other three at 4K. In ray tracing, the 7800 XT at 1080p seems to match the 3080 10GB and pulls a little ahead of the 6800 XT while falling behind the 4070. At 1440p ray tracing, the 7800 XT is slightly ahead of the 6800 XT but falls a bit behind the 3080 and 4070. In 4K ray tracing, the pack sees a similar makeup but with lower frame rate as is expected. The 3080 pulls a bit ahead of the 4070 and the 7800 XT, ahead of the 6800 XT, but we're talking 2 to 3 FPS, so the difference is tiny at this resolution. So yeah, we basically have four cards at this performance tier. They sort of trade blows. Where once, I guess, we only had two at this performance tier, the RTX 3080 10GB and 6800 XT. At this performance tier, the 7800 XT is doing better price to performance than the RTX 4070, as it is $500 versus the 4070 around $600. Although, if you're more into NVIDIA's DLSS or software suite, or ray tracing, I guess, then the RTX 4070 may be worth the higher cost to you. For comparison, the 7800 XT has more VRAM at a lower cost, at least at the moment, than the 4070 16GB versus 12GB, and performs quite similarly, though it does fall behind in ray tracing. Those who prefer DLSS, NVIDIA's software and general production application lead, will likely prefer the 4070, but for the price, I think the 7800 XT is fairly good, pretty good. You could always just pick up a 6800 XT, which, while stocks last, is similarly priced or cheaper than the 7800 XT. I don't believe you can get 3080s new anymore, unless you pay. I think I've seen a few for inflated prices. But yeah, if you can find one for under the car or around about the same cost, I guess it's okay, or a bit less. And also, if you're okay with buying used, then you can likely get a 6800 XT or 3080 for a fair bit cheaper. In conclusion, for the 7800 XT, there are four GPUs with similar performance, two from the current gen and two from the last gen, with pricing ranging from the $400 mark to the $600 mark, depending on them being used or new. Yeah, it does seem a bit weird that there's four cards that are all sort of trading blows at this sort of $500 tier, or five to sort of 600, I guess. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Now onto the 7700 XT. The card seems to be less competitive than the 7800 XT, certainly. I'll cover a few basics as I did with 7800 XT, then get into reviews, etc. We'll include screenshots of the card's tech power up page as well, in case you want to take a look. The 7700 XT has an MSRP of $450. It's based on RDNA 3. It has 3,456 cores with a boost clock of 2544 MHz, 12GB of GDDR6 VRAM, a 192-bit bus, and a TBP total board power of 245 watts. Now onto the performance metrics. I will include Hardware Unbox and Gamers Nexus reviews for the 7700 XT as well in the description. As mentioned, yeah, these were the main reviews that I watched, and I will include some written reviews as well. The 7700 XT performed similarly to the RX 6800 non-XT, but ahead of the RTX 4060 Ti in the 1080p, 1440p and 4K. And although the 6800 pulls a little ahead of the 7700 XT at 4K, the difference is a few frames. In ray tracing, the 7700 XT and 4060 Ti 16GB are almost identical at 1080p, 1440p, as well as at 4K. 7700 XT does have a decent lead in general raster gaming workloads, but in ray tracing, both GPUs are very similar. So yeah, we have the 7700 XT and 6800 performing very similar, with the RTX 4060 Ti falling behind unless ray tracing is being used. There are also two variants of the 4060 Ti, an 8GB model and a 16GB model. Generally, they perform identically within the margin of error, but I suspect that the 8GB model will fall behind the 16GB model in games, especially when using ray tracing in the future. The 7700 XT, with its $450 MSRP and its 12GB of VRAM, sits right between the two RTX 4060 Ti models, though performs better than both in non-ray tracing scenarios. I believe Nvidia is planning on dropping the price of both the RTX 4060 Ti models, maybe quite soon. I've heard some rumours, but not 100% sure that's happened yet. I still think the 7700 XT is the better buy, price to performance wise, even with price drops. Though I guess it does depend on how much they decide to drop it. But yeah, so saying that though, if you think you can stretch the extra 50 or so dollars, the 7800 XT is a better buy than both. You can also, like I said, with the 7800 XT, look into the used market if you're okay with that. I think 6800s go for under $400 if you find a good deal, with the 6800 XE going for a bit over $400 if you find a good deal. When I checked on eBay at sold listings. But if you're not okay with buying a used graphics cards, you could try and get a new 6800 or 6800 XT or 3080 10 gig as I mentioned. But yeah, I believe they are quite rare, especially the 3080. I think the 6800 non XT are still not too hard to find new, but the other two not so much, I believe. In conclusion, then, I don't think you can go wrong buying an RX 7800 XT at $500. I think it's a better buy than the RX 7700 XT, which isn't a bad buy itself when compared to the 4060 Ti. But yeah, as I said, I would have liked the 7800 XT to perform a bit higher, and the 7700 XT especially to be priced lower. If you want an RTX card for gaming or need Nvidia for its software or for work, etc., you'll likely be fine paying more for the RTX 4070 over the 7800 XT, which, yeah, I don't see a problem with. You could always look at, as I mentioned, if you're okay with used cards, like used 3080s and along those lines, if you want this sort of performance tier. I think the 4070 is, yeah, priced a bit too high at the moment, but it isn't bad, I guess, when compared to the 4060 Ti. But yeah, it is your decision after all, and as long as you're happy with what you've purchased, then yeah, that's all that matters. So yeah, that is the AMD GPU news side of things finished with. So yeah, I believe that is all the major GPU news for today. But now for some Nintendo Switch 2 news. Some of this is Nvidia related, as Nvidia does provide the hardware for Nintendo's Switch console. I had covered a few tech news videos back that Nintendo has been working on a Switch successor and is looking like it may release in the second half of next year, 2024. has been a rather interesting update on this front, actually, if the details of these rumours are true. So the Switch 2, as we'll call it here on out, is more than likely going to have an NVIDIA SoC system on a chip at its core, as the current Switch does, although it is based on quite weak hardware at this point. But it has squeezed a lot out of it. It's actually quite an impressive device. When I checked, it is based on the GM20B or GM20B. There are actually 20 nanometer and 16 nanometer versions, but I'm pretty sure they perform the same, at least gaming performance wise. So yeah, this GM20B, this is a GPU from NVIDIA's Maxwell architecture, specifically Maxwell 2.0, that powered mostly the GTX 900 series, a great series of GPUs, might add. Had a GTX 970 for a number of years. It was great. Do still have it lying around somewhere, actually. I still use it from time to time in a backup PC to play around and test games, etc. Yeah, it still holds up okay. So the Switch, yeah, uses a GPU from 2017, a GPU which is also low power, as you might expect, given the Switch's form factor, and I think it has 4 gigs of VRAM. While these are pretty low specs, sort of these days for a new card, as I said, the Switch yeah manages to pull off very impressive games, like for instance, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, with the hardware from 2017. So that's really cool. But yeah, even when considering this, I think it is definitely time for an upgrade to the Switch, and it would likely seem one is right around the corner in the form of an entirely new, likely handheld Switch successor. Now, the most recent news is that Nintendo showcased the Switch 2 to a select few during a secret game developer only presentation at Gamescom this year. This has so far been confirmed by 2 sources, but is still a rumour. The rumour also suggests, as I would expect, that the Switch 2 would have a higher resolution and that Nintendo are actually working on an enhanced version of Breath of the Wild for the upcoming console. If this is true, then I would expect a Tears of the Kingdom enhanced edition as well. That would be quite cool. Now for some more NVIDIA info regarding the Switch 2. As I said, it is almost certain at this point that it will incorporate an NVIDIA SoC system on a chip, and these new rumours do point to that, as during the alleged secret showcase, the device was running the Matrix Awakens Unreal Engine 5 demo, and that it was actually using DLSS. It wasn't revealed whether this was DLSS 3, but I think a DLSS 2.0 enabled Switch would be pretty cool, given I guess it is probably about a year out. They could have another DLSS version enabled for it. There are also reports of the Switch 2 providing similar visuals in this demo to the PS5 and Series X, but I guess that doesn't mean it will be as powerful as those non-handheld devices. I suspect that it will at least be as powerful as the Series S, which is around the performance of the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro, which would be a rather large bump in performance compared to the current Switch. But I could be wrong. It could be more powerful. I'm not really sure. Given that it's running on the Unreal demo, Matrix Awakens, it might point to it being more powerful, but not entirely sure. Going by previous reports, Nintendo has already provided dev kits to a certain number of game developers, and this does point to a release date sometime next year, likely the early second half of 2024, so a little earlier than this time next year. Although this is not definite, it is speculated to be the most probable time frame. So yeah, we could see the specs change by then because they're a year out potentially, depending on how quick they want to be. They might be able to change some hardware up, but I'm not quite sure about that. But yeah, that's all quite interesting news to me. It's cool to get more details, and I know it's still rumor and speculation, but it does have me quite intrigued. As I'm very interested in new hardware in general. I'm guessing Nintendo will reveal the device early next year. I'd be surprised if they announce anything this year, but I have to wait and see on that front. It's quite interesting times. As we do also have rumours of the PS5 Pro, and I'm not sure about the Xbox side of things, but yeah, just interesting console times in general, I think. Now on to another handheld, but this time a PC handheld, the Lenovo Legion Go. The handheld PC made by Lenovo has now been revealed, including its specs. I had covered this device being leaked a few videos back, and now we have the full release details. I will say I wasn't expecting this device so soon. And yeah, I will be putting footage and images up of the Legion Go throughout. The Legion Go is a Lenovo Legion Go is a Windows 11 based handheld PC I believe it's primarily targeted at gamers, but it can be used for many things as it's a PC essentially. The screen or display is 8.8 inches, so quite large. The ASUS ROG Ally and the Steam Deck have 7-inch screens, and the Switch Lite has a 5.5-inch screen. The standard Switch has a 6.2-inch screen, while the OLED Switch has a 7-inch screen. Resolution-wise, the Legion Go's display is 2560 by 1600, so a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. It also has 144Hz and a touchscreen. The ASUS ROG Ally's resolution is 920 by 1080, so 16 by 9, and is 120Hz. The Legion Go is powered by an AMD Ryzen Z1 or Z1 Extreme APU, as is the higher end ROG Ally model, and both APUs have RDNA 3 integrated graphics, I believe. The Legion Go, as standard, comes with 16GB of LPDDR5X at 7500 MHz, I believe, up to a 1TB PCIe Gen 4 NVMe SSD, and I believe the specs are upgradable, but I'm not 100% sure how much of the device is actually upgradable. The Legion Go also has two USB 4.0 Type-C ports, a 3.5mm headphone jack, and a micro SD card reader, two speakers, Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2 capability. The battery is a 42.9 watt hours in capacity, which is slightly larger than the 40 watt hours batteries in the Ally and Steam Deck. But as far as I can tell, Lenovo haven't given estimated battery life as of yet for gaming or just general use. The Go also weighs 854 grams, or about 1.88 pounds, and also comes with detachable controllers, which when removed reduce the weight to 640 grams, or 1.41 pounds. And it also actually does have a kickstand in case you want to rest it and play it without keeping it held in your hands, I guess. The device is releasing in October of this year, so 2024, and will cost 2023, sorry, and will cost $700. So quite similar to the ROG Ally. I actually thought it was going to be a little bit more expensive, maybe around the $800 mark, but I guess they kind of had to match the ASUS ROG Ally. So yeah, I'm surprised they sort of kept it at the 700 mark with larger and higher resolution screen, higher refresh rate, and battery. That's quite interesting. But yeah, I'm not planning on buying one, but the Legion Go does seem pretty interesting, especially because it has a larger, higher resolution screen. Though I do think the 1080p display on the Ally is fine, especially given the form factor. And yes, 7-inch to 8.8 inch is a decent size difference. And yeah, I do wonder how it will handle. In dispatchable mode, I guess holding the device won't be an issue though. And also, I guess you can just hook it up to a monitor if you want to use it like that. And I would imagine it would have mouse support and things and keyboard support and stuff. But yeah, I'll definitely be looking forward to reviews for Lenovo Legion Go, and I may do coverage of it when tech YouTubers get their hands on it and sort of properly review the device. That would be an interesting watch. I wouldn't mind maybe getting a handheld PC at some point, and sort of using it as like a mini PC or like a small form factor PC, but I just can't really justify it. I don't really see myself using it that much at the moment, but yeah, things may change in the future, but I think I'm more inclined to look at the probably the next Steam Deck, the Steam Deck 2, or even the Switch 2. Although, yeah, given I'm more PC gaming these days, I think the Steam Deck would be something I'd edge towards a bit more. As yeah, I can just use it as like a mini PC kind of. So now for some brief Starfield news. Currently, Starfield doesn't have DLSS or XESS support. It only has FSR 2.0 implementation. I believe it might be 2.1 or 2.2. It looks like at least DLSS will be implemented into the game at a later date officially, but we don't have an indication when that may be. Because of this, the modder Pure Dark created a DLSS and XESS mod / plugin for the game to enable these two other upscaling methods. Does seem to work well, but if you want the DLSS 3 frame generation version of the mod, you will need to pay Pure Dark, I believe through their Patreon. But there is a free DLSS 2 and XESS version as well from Pure Dark. But now another modder, Luke FZ, has created a DLSS 3 mod for Starfield, but it does replace the FSR 2 implementation completely, I believe. I will include images here of the mod as provided by Luke FZ, And the good news is that the mod is actually free. The mod, as is the case with DLSS 3 frame gen, will require an RTX 40 series GPU for it to work. The mod is still in active development, as noted in the video cards article, and has some bugs, as reported by users of the mod, but does seem to work quite well. Hopefully DLSS 3 is added in the future by Bethesda, although I think we will see FSR 3 before DLSS 3, given that AMD is Bethesda's official Starfield partner. Some more quick DLSS news now. Star Wars Jedi Survivor released a few months back, and I believe it has FSR2 support, but not DLSS, at least not until now. The most recent update for the game has added DLSS 3 frame generation support. I will add a screenshot of patch 7's details. The update, as alluded, is named patch 7, and it has added DLSS into the game among some other performance optimizations, including what they say is a solid 60 FPS console performance mode update. It looks like Intel XESS isn't coming to the game, at least not yet anyway, and FSR3 fluid motion frames support has no release indication either. Hopefully they do end up adding both of these in another update, but we'll have to wait and see. I think that in general, the more upscaling tech the game has, the better, as this gives players more freedom to use whatever sort of tech and upscaling tech they want from any brand, I guess. Or should I say, depending on the brand they have, as there's generally locked down. Actually, the NVIDIA side, DLSS is locked to NVIDIA GPUs, but FSR and I believe XESS works on all GPUs, but above a certain date anyway. But yeah, so it's generally, I think, best to have DLSS, FSR, and XESS in every game that is possible. Just, so people have a wider array of upscaling they can test out and see which one's sort of best for them. Now onto some Intel CPU news. Intel has its Intel Innovation 2023 event taking place later this month on the 19th to the 20th of September in San Jose. At this event, it is almost certain that Intel will show off its next-gen processors, including the Intel Core 14th gen lineup, 14700K, 14900K, etc. Alongside its desktop CPU lineup is looking like Intel will show off its first Intel Core Ultra branded Meteor Lake H mobile CPUs. There are no desktop variants of Meteor Lake CPUs. It looked like these are just mobile CPUs, and as shown, they have the H designation to denote that. Now we have some leaked naming and specs for these Core Ultra processors. We'll include relevant images around here. The processors are the Core Ultra 7 155H, Core Ultra 7 165H, Core Ultra 9 185H, as well as the Core Ultra 5 125H. As mentioned, Meteor Lake is going to be mobile only, going by what has been leaked. I think desktop Meteor Lake CPUs were planned, but were replaced by Raptor Lake refresh CPUs. Could still see Meteor Lake desktop in the future, but I'm not sure that will be the case. The Core Ultra branding is also interesting. I thought that the 14th gen Intel CPUs would have the Core Ultra branding, but looks like they will continue to have the Core I branding. Although maybe Intel's next gen CPUs, the 15th gen desktop processors, will switch over to the Core Ultra naming scheme. I'm not really sure. Intel's naming schemes seem to confuse a lot of people, me included. On a related note, more benchmark leaks have surfaced for Intel 14th gen CPUs. This time for the i9 14900K. I had covered other 14th gen leaks in the past, but I believe this leak was more recent, quite recent. We'll include a screenshot from the WCCF Tech article here. Looks like performance-wise, the upcoming 14900K will be a tiny amount faster compared to the 13900K and KS when going by the single-threaded score. When going by the multi-threaded score, the 14900K is about 5% faster than the 13900K and about 2.5% faster than the KS. So not much of an improvement, but we'll have to find out more when Intel's innovation event begins, and once reviewers get their hands on Intel's 14th gen CPUs, maybe it will be more of a difference than those sort of percentage numbers are sort of alluding to, I guess. But yeah, we'll have to see what they're like in sort of real world applications like gaming and uh, rendering and the likes. Now for some AMD Threadripper news. It looks like AMD's next Threadripper HEDD high-end desktop CPUs based on Ryzen 7000 will be releasing towards the end of this year. These will have the TRX 50 socket. These new Threadrippers will be codenamed Stormpeak. More evidence for Threadripper 7000 came in the form of an ASRock listing. I will include an image of the listing here as well as screenshots from the WCCF article of the likely lineup. The listing, which was submitted to the EEC, Eurasian Economic Commission, details a TRX 50WS motherboard. I believe a lot of workstation users are sort of waiting on the release of new AMD Threadripper CPUs, as there are no Ryzen 7000 Zen 4 based Threadripper CPUs at the moment. These new upcoming HEDT processors should give workstation users a significant bump in performance, as they will be based on AMD's Zen 4 architecture. I'm interested to see how these new Threadripper CPUs perform. I don't plan on getting a Threadripper system. A bit much for me, probably. I don't necessarily need that much performance, but yeah, it's cool to see workstation CPUs in action. Probably cover reviews for them later this year. But yeah, that is if they come out before the end of the year, that is. Next up, some ASUS news. Intel had planned to close its NUC division, NUC, but instead they decided to sell the NUC division to ASUS. NUC, or Next Unit of Computing, I believe it is, are essentially Intel-based small form factor mini PCs. We'll put images up of a couple NUCs here along with an ASUS tweet. They're quite cool actually, and they come in a few different variations and sizes, different sizes. I've never used one, but I could see myself using one in the future if I ever wanted a mini PC. So ASUS has now announced it has taken over Intel's NUC division on Twitter, or X, and is going to begin selling its own NUC products, although there is no release date as of yet. From what I can tell, these ASUS NUCs will feature Intel CPUs from the 10th to the 13th gen. I'm kind of surprised that you can still get 10th gen Intel based NUCs, but I suppose 10th gen Intel CPUs are still pretty powerful. I just didn't think they were supported anymore. ASUS has also said that it will make use of Intel Meteor Lake chips in the future, so expect these to power next gen NUCs maybe. I could imagine we may see more details during or after Intel's innovation event. These ASUS NUCs are another product I am looking forward to being reviewed in the future. I believe Gamers Nexus had reviewed Intel NUCs previously, so I'll be keeping a lookout for new NUC videos from Steve and the team. The last bit of news for today is some Cinebench news. A new version of Cinebench, Cinebench 2024, has been released. The new version of Cinebench will feature an updated rendering engine, allowing both CPU and GPU benchmarking. I believe most previous versions of Cinebench only had CPU benchmarking, not GPU. There may have been much older versions with GPU benchmarking, but I'm not sure. So Maxon is the creator of Cinebench, and the new version of the software uses Redshift, which is apparently, from what I read, Cinema 4D's default rendering engine. I've not used Cinema 4D, used Blender a fair bit, but not Cinema 4D. This allows for GPU benchmarking along with CPU benchmarking. Cinebench 2024 is also looking like it will be better suited for high core count CPUs, as it has apparently increased the memory footprint threefold and the computation effort sixfold. I think Redshift rendering engine integration is the biggest thing to come from the new version, as allowing GPU benchmarking is a great addition to the CPU benchmarking that Cinebench is sort of known for. That's how I knew about Cinebench anyway. I have actually downloaded Cinebench 2024 and I'm going to give it a go. I've never actually used any version of the software before, but I've seen plenty of it. It's used plenty of times in sort of reviews and things. But yeah, I've used Unigen's superposition for GP testing, but maybe I'll swap over to Cinebench going forward. It'd be interesting just to see how that works and see how that Redshift engine works for GPUs. I'll probably give it a go and try it out at some point over the next maybe few days or something. Once I get it installed and up and running and sort of figure it out how it works and things. So that is the end of the general tech news stuff. I will do a quick YouTube video spotlight before I sort of wrap up the video. So for the video spotlight is a video by the YouTube user Delka. So Delka has made a demake of Tomb Raider Legend. It looks yeah, it looks really cool. I won't go into it too much. Definitely check the video out yourself. As always, they'll be linked in the description. But yeah, I do like game demakes, and this is another good looking one, especially because I like the Tomb Raider games. So yeah, check that out. And that's all the tech coverage from me today. If you're interested, you can also check out my gaming news, which was would have been published yesterday. As always, feedback is appreciated, so go ahead and like or dislike and leave a comment. If you enjoyed my videos and commentary, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will be back again soon.